Welcome to Aurora Connects Season 2. This is episode 17 for Friday, December 11th, 2020, Backstage Tour with Cameron Swartzal. I'm Monique Williams, Associate Artistic Director for Aurora Theater, and as always, I'm joined by Artistic Director Josh Costello. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Dawn. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. It's been another week.
Another week. Yep. Yep.
And
Lots
this is our
season
finale of Season 2 of Aurora Connects. When we return, it will be Season 3. How exciting.
That's right. Yeah, we've been making lots of plans for Season 3. We're going to change some things up, and I'm really excited about it.
I am too. What isn't going to change is a quote most weeks. And this week's quote is from August Wilson's 7 Guitars, because that is the play that we are covering Monday night, this upcoming Monday, as part of our A Year with August readers group. So, need that kind of love. One man in the ground and the other in jail. What she got? Went from 2 to sometimes 1 to none to ducking and dodging bullets. For what? For love? No, thank you. I don't need me no love. That is from Louise.
From 7 Guitars.
7 Guitars.
Yeah. So Dawn mentioned our A Year with August book club that she runs once a month. That is a benefit for members of Aurora Theater Company's 2020-2021 season. So if you are not already a member, please go to our website, auroratheater.org, and you can join up as a member there. In addition to A Year with August, you also get access to The Flats, our world premiere audio drama that we commissioned from 3 incredible local playwrights that opened earlier in the fall. Also, another audio drama, which we'll be announcing very, very soon, very exciting, that Dawn will be directing in the spring. And lots of other programming as well, including, I'm excited to be able to talk about today for the first time, Nosotros la Gente from American Stage in Florida. This is a partnership that we're doing with American Stage, where they are presenting our production of The Flats to their audience, and we get to present their production of this wonderful play, Nosotros la Gente, to our audience. So it is free for members. So please go ahead to auroratheater.org. You can find out all the information there and join us as a member for this season. And while you're there, you can also click the donate button at the top right. We are in the middle of our end of the year fundraising campaign. We're trying to raise $100,000. We're about halfway there, just about halfway there. We could maybe push it over the halfway mark today during this episode. If you're watching and you haven't donated yet, or you feel like you want to reach a little deeper into your pocket, please go ahead and do so. That you can see the numbers right there. We're just below $50,000. So please, if you can help us out, it makes a big difference in our ability to get through this very difficult year and be back in the beautiful space you see behind me and Dawn virtually. We want to get back there for real. And so please help us do that with a donation if you can. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. We are live today. So as always, please chat along with us on Facebook and the YouTube comment section. Hit like, subscribe. You can email us anytime at connects@auroratheater.org. That's connects@auroratheater.org. We'd love to hear from you. We have a lot of exciting things planned for our season 3, which will premiere on Thursday, February 4th, 2021 at 5 p.m. That is a day and time change. Thursday, February 4th at 5 p.m. Still a live show. So we would love to hear what you're interested in. So please, connects@auroratheater.org, and you can listen to Aurora Connects in an audio podcast format wherever you source your podcasts. So feel free to do that too. Take us on the go with you.
So Dawn, you're saying that we're switching to Thursdays in the spring for Aurora Connects.
We are switching to Thursdays at 5 p.m. when we premiere season 3 of Aurora Connects on Thursday, February 4th, 2021.
Thank you. I'm glad. Thanks for making that clear, because I get confused about these things. Thank
you. Well,
I'm
Josh,
so
you have to be here.
I'll be here.
And we hope that the viewers at home will join us then as well. Today,
for our guest, yeah?
Yes, today we have an exciting guest, Aurora, a longtime staff member, well, longer than me, but a longtime staff member, our technical director, Cameron Swartzall. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Cameron. So, Cameron, you have been our technical director since 2013, also production manager for much of that time. You were at Center Rep before that. You've worked with theaters all over the Bay Area, especially Alameda Civic Light Opera, but many others as well. You are a man who can build anything. You are a scuba diver. You are a pizza maker. You're a big gamer. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us, for those who don't know, what is a technical director? What is your job description? What do you do at Aurora?
All right. First of all, at every theater, jobs are a little different in what they entail. But a technical director's role predominantly is to coordinate with a number of the designers and the staff of the entire production to get everything that's physical set for the play. My job is primarily to deal with the set, so I deal with the set designer and discuss things with the director and how we're going to create their vision in reality. You interface with the lighting director, sound director, or sound designer. If we have projections, props, costumes, sort of anything that's physical on stage, the technical director is heavily involved in coordinating and managing.
And so what skills do you say are most important to you in your job?
Well, like I said, being able to build anything, problem solving really quickly, understanding materials and methods. It's just a lot of quick thinking about how you might go about creating or doing something. It's hard to identify any particular skill. I guess the most important skill is the ability to pick up skills really quickly. We'll do a show and they'll say, oh, we need to run electrical and plumbing down this wall that needs to also rotate simultaneously with other walls. And you say, okay, well, I know that they have flexible plumbing tubing they do in housing called PEX. So I got to go look up how to do PEX plumbing or something real quick. Thank God for the internet. And now you can become an expert in 2 days, looking at anything. So that's it. But communicating with designers and your director and working with the team is really important. And picking up stuff really quick.
Well, I know that designers and directors, one of the reasons that they love working at Aurora so much is because they feel like they're in such good hands with you. And they know that you're going to be really clear about what we can do and what we can't do, that if you say you can do something, you're going to do it and it gets built and it's great. You can solve lots of problems. Like, people really appreciate your work at Aurora.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, we already have somebody in the chat saying Cameron Swartzell is that dude. I'm sure you can guess that's Aurora Connect's #1 audience member, Michael J. Asbury. Somehow you two are besties, Cameron.
So another thing that
Cameron, something.
You go.
I was going to say, Cameron, something that you do for our patrons and donors is this awesome Backstage tour. And we thought maybe we could do a little private tour for all the folks that watch Aurora Connects. So we've had you go in the theater and make a tour for us, right?
Josh and I recorded something like a week ago, a little backstage for people that haven't been on that tour and can see sort of our space.
And to be clear, we did this
a
before
150 seat, we call it a deep thrust,
Here we go.
like a black box theater. And as you all know, we're well known for intimate plays. The space is very tight. The theater's dimensions, the stage dimensions, are only 30 feet by 14 feet across, which means that you're never really more than 10 feet at the most from your nearest audience member. Everything is very close. So that affects more or less everything we do here at the Aurora. It affects the acting, the plays we choose, and for all of my departments, more or less everything about the physical layout. The way we light, the way we do sound, the props, and how the set is built. So we'll show you a bit of where we're at. If you look around, there's still stuff from our last production, The Children, which didn't quite get finished getting struck. And we were just into our first rehearsal for our next production, Loot, on stage. And you can see we had started to build the set for Loot. And it's still up. We haven't really had time or a reason to take it down, unfortunately. As you can see, here is the set model. So this is something the set designer, in this case Richard Olmsted, designs to discuss with the director and everyone how everything's gonna look. And it was all complete and ready to start getting produced. And on stage you can see we were able to repurpose a lot of flats from The Children, which are the gray flats. We're not always able to reuse materials, but in this case we're gonna be able to do this play almost with everything reused, which was gonna be really great because I was very excited for this flooring material. We're gonna have this really cool, sexy black laminate, like piano gloss, black laminate floor, which was gonna cost 2/3 of the budget just for the flooring material. This sexy red stripe. Tom Ross, the director of the show's design ideas was sexy. Everything was gonna be really sexy about this play. And I thought that was gonna be a really fun sort of element. Yeah, that's how you know a technical director nerd is when you get really excited about flooring material.
Flooring that's here now, what are we seeing on
So as is the case often, we just leave floor. So the main space you see is painted for Bull in a China Shop, which is 2 shows previous, but because The Children had a large platform that covered most of the stage, we built the platform prior to painting over. So that often happens. Actually, you can see going all the way back to here, some of this green paint, that's Ernest actually. So that's quite a ways back. I think some of the black was from, I don't know what. Anyhow, that's often the case. We discover old bits of plays. Like I said, we were using old flats. So when you reuse stuff in theater, you get to sort of revisit some of those older segments. Let's go ahead and show Backstage. There's not a lot of Backstage to the Aurora. There's not a lot of room. Often we have walls in this, area here, but the back wall itself is just right here. There isn't like a proscenium stage, a large backstage area. We build mostly unit sets, which are sets that don't really change because there is no off stage to store them or bring things on or anything. And so again, that very much affects like the plays we choose, how we do them and how we design them, and is a big element of sort of all of the steps in the process. We'll go backstage where the actors hang out now. So it's a pretty short distance. We have 2 tiny alcoves on either side of the stage where we store props, often right here, and where actors are usually waiting to make their entrances and exits. Label stuff there. That's all from The Children. And then you can see our illustrious green room.
So we're now directly on the other side of the back wall of the stage.
Yep, so just right there. Here's a green room where costumes are prepped, actors get all ready, and they hang out between scenes. We have 2 dressing rooms here at the Aurora Theater that fairly comfortably seat about 3 people per. Our record is, how many cast members did we have for 5th of July?
I think it was 8.
8?
I don't think we go over 8.
Yeah.
A long time ago, there were a couple of shows that were bigger than that.
So it gets pretty tight back here sometimes, but it's a relatively smallish area, and
You want to show us the dressing room?
yeah, I can go into one of the dressing rooms here. Pretty standard for theatrical dressing rooms. So large mirror and lighted space for actors to get ready, where we store our costumes and everything. Yeah, try to stay distant. During this time, I was able to do some small improvements in here. I've replaced the flooring in both of these spaces, which has been nice to be able to get a few things done like that we've never really had time to do before.
And this is flooring that we had on hand from leftover from a show.
Yeah, indeed. All of this stuff is left over. I think this carpet was used in Mud Blue Sky. Boy, that was a fun set. That was the hotel room set. I had a lot of fun doing that. because our space is so close, we have to do things very realistic. So stuff isn't done using lots of theatrical tricks. I use a lot of materials that are very real. And Mud Blue Sky was a good example of that. Just everything about it looked exactly like a hotel room. And I like figuring out what are the elements that make a show like that work. So for the hotel room, the key really, as we were building a set, was some of the little details at the end, like putting in the peephole. We used an actual hotel keyed door lock that actually worked, and so it made the noises. And like the final element was the little fire escape map that goes above the peephole. As soon as we put that on there, it was just like, wow, it looks exactly like a hotel room. It's one of the most realistic sets I've done, and it was very fun and exciting because of that.
But the Gideon's Knot classroom was very realistic.
Yeah, that one was really interesting too. I really prefer, I love to do very realistic sets. You know, very abstract stuff we do sometimes, and those are fun too, but I just like the hyper-realism and using real materials and building methods on stage. Gideon's Knot was challenging because it had a full ceiling that covered the entire extent of the stage with built-in fluorescent lighting. And so our lighting designer, was Michael Palumbo for that show, had to really get all his lights in very low from the sides. And because we're using the fluorescent lighting for real on stage, we didn't have a ton of control. So that was sort of a tricking lighting element to that show. Luckily it was a single scene all the way through. And so the changes could be very subtle. But yeah, every show has challenges like that, which is the main part of my job and working with all of these designers, is figuring out how we solve these little challenges on stage. And that's really the thing I love about my job, is sort of figuring out the puzzles for each and every show. Yep. I guess we can show you the shop a bit, where we construct everything. More or less, we build everything on stage itself because we don't have a large shop, which is somewhat unusual. It does have its advantages. Being able to build directly on stage means you don't have to tear things apart, put them together later and whatnot. But we share the space with the actors. So every day they're rehearsing on stage, and every day I'm building on stage. So the stage is really in constant action when we're between productions, morning through night, getting ready for the next show. So we build things both directly on the stage itself. There you can see how narrow our backstage is. And we build in the lobby. If you've ever come to the box office between shows, you'll note that often it looks sort of like this, where we have a lot of building materials out, because there simply isn't room. This little closet space is the extent of our shop. It's basically wide enough for the table saw, chop saw, and minor construction. Yeah. Do you want to go in the dash show?
Sure, or we could do the booth.
Yeah, that's true. Let's go up to the booth real quick. So the booth is the control station for the lighting and the sound, where our stage managers view the show, and the stage manager's role is to keep everything on track during the production every night. So they manage the actors, and in our case they run the lighting board, and they make all the cue calls to the crew and the sound operator. So you can see what they get to see here. So, stage manager is surrounded by a bank of monitors, and they have sound cue information and an infrared camera to see people on stage in the dark, and lighting information. And they usually have a physical script, and they stand right here and look directly out onto the stage live the whole time and keep track of the whole show. So that's what they get to see. Yep. All right. Yeah, we can briefly go in the dash and show our second stage. Now the dash was not originally built as a performing space, but every year since I've been here now, we've had a single full production, and it's been somewhat challenging because we have to basically create the performing space every year, but it's also been really fun in that we've had a lot of different arrangements. In fact, almost every year we've had a different arrangement for how the audience is seating and what they're seeing. We've had to create a lighting grid up here and turn it into a performing space. Like Loot, we were just in the midst of getting ready for the production that was going to be up here for our 1920 season for The Ruler. And so this horseshoe arrangement was going to be the first time we've done this sort of arrangement, facing center, for a design that Angret McCloskey had designed for The Ruler. And we had just had a few meetings on that. We're finalizing the design prior to having to shut down everything.
What's going on with the blotches over there?
With what?
What's happening on the wall over there?
Oh yeah, this sound paneling. So all the black panels here, and there was a bunch of them up there, were these sound panels which help to eliminate some of the echo and reflection in the room. And when we were recording the flats, we took a bunch of the sound paneling off of the wall so we could use it to create some ad hoc sound booths for our actors to try to get some cleaner audio. So again, figuring out puzzles and reusing what we have on hand to create art. Yep. So that's pretty much it for the Aurora's performing spaces. They're pretty tight and small, and I'm glad you could join us for that.
Oh, wow, Cam, thank you. I've never actually been on your backstage tour, though I've been on my own backstage tour many, many times. But I just want to share that we do have viewers at home who are, Chris Killian says, the memories. We have people saying, this is so good, this is riveting. Former artistic director Tom Ross says, I'm loving being in the theater with Cam and Josh. So, so people are being moved to be in our space once again, even if through this virtual medium. So I'm so glad that you friends were able to get in there before we had to be shut down again to make this video.
And Chris Killian is Cameron's predecessor for many years at Aurora.
Oh, is that right? Okay, well, there it is. And we do have a question, and it is related to a question that we have for you, Cameron, where we were going to ask you your favorite show that you built. But somebody has also asked Tom what's his favorite show that you've built. And Tom says he's amazing, all of them.
All of them. Oh.
So hats off to you. So so Cameron, now you can tell us about some of your favorite builds, Aurora and or otherwise.
Yeah. Well, let's see. It's pretty hard to choose. I think that one of my favorite builds was Tally's Folly, which I think was the second show we did in the Dash Out. And it was, let's see, John Tracy was the designer for that, and Joy Carlin was the director. And it was just really lovely in the end. It was the way it sort of feathered out and incorporated the whole space that sort of sat in a J shape around it. It really is one of the most immersive sets, I feel like. It had all these reeds that sort of went, into the wings, and a big boat that sort of jutted out into the audience and really made the audience feel like they were on the water themselves, like right there. And it was really beautiful. And actually, I have a good story about that set. One of the things that makes it my favorite is sort of a trick. Like I said, one of the things I really like is the engineering, solving puzzles and challenges on stage. And in that play, Rolf Saxon's character is supposed to be stumbling around on some ice skates on this like pretty rickety dock. It was already difficult. He's a tall man, and it's hard to walk on ice skates on regular land. There's gaps in the stage, so we had to create little custom blade guards to help him stay upright. But at one point, he's supposed to walk to a spot and break through a plank and fall, and sort of injure himself and fall into the deck. And that's in that photo shows that. And it was kind of cool because I got to employ this magician's trick that we use on stage sometimes, in that when actions happen really close together, you piece them together in the way that logically they would happen, even if it's not quite the order. So I like doing tech tricks. In that case, Rolf would plant his foot on this particular plank, and then he would stumble and fall back against the wall and grab this shelf and fall down and then fall through the floor. And what was actually happening is he would fall back first and grab the shelf and pull it. And it was just a loose plank attached with cables. The cables run down the wall and underneath the stage to a latch that releases the plank. The plank falls, and that allows his foot to go down, and he falls in. But because it all happened so quick, and Ralph could really sell it, it looks like he falls through and then falls backwards and whatnot. And so shows that we have those kinds of little tricks and stuff I think are really fun.
That is really cool. We had in Detroit, you had to do a foot through.
Yeah, we've done two breaking through a plank on a deck. Surprising that I've had to do that twice.
Yeah, the breakaway stuff is always super fun. I know you wanted to talk about American Buffalo as well.
Yeah, so that was another interesting set. That was in my first season with the Aurora, a little later in the season. Let's see, that was designed by Erickson Conan and directed by
Eric.
Yeah, I miss Eric. Directed by Barbara Damashek. And one of my favorite compliments I've ever gotten as a technical director is apparently an audience member came up and he was watching closing night. And he said, wow, it was really cool that on closing night, you let James Carpenter just absolutely, at the final scene, his character goes crazy and just absolutely wrecks the place. And this guy said, wow, it's cool. Since it's a closing night, you just let him break absolutely everything and go nuts. And we told him no, it's very controlled. And he broke all that stuff every day. It takes a lot of planning. So there's these glass cases you can see here. They're actually made out of bulletproof Lexan so that James Carpenter can wail on them with a shovel and shatter them. They're all held up like shards held up with magnets. There's that big metal case there, and that was on hinges with 1,000 metal objects on it, so it'd make a really terrifying sound when you pushed it over every night. And we must have test dropped that thing 20 times before we ever let anyone near it, so we could see how far does everything roll and whatnot. Safety is always a number one concern. So yeah, we would never do anything like that willy-nilly, so it was all tested and carefully controlled. Safety is always a big aspect in my job, for the audience and especially for the actors on stage. A good example is actually in that same play. Barbara Damashek had wanted above the table in the middle a ceiling fan with a light directly above it to rotate very slowly to cast a sort of ominous noir shadow. And James Carpenter is actually a severe epileptic. And so we had to work with him to make sure, can we do this? At what speed does it need to rotate? What
it creates the strobe effect? Is that the idea?
Yeah, because it can produce a strobe effect. And we ended up doing it, but you always have to work with everyone, including especially the cast, for constraints like that. And like you mentioned earlier, you have to be prepared at all times to say no to things. Sometimes you just say, hey, we can't do this. This is too expensive. It will take too much time, or it's not safe. So yeah, just always being on top of safety it touches on so many aspects, electrical hazards, atmospheric effects, loud noises, structural integrity of the set, being mindful of the audience, and just the physical movements of the actors on stage.
Well, and our audience is so close to the set too. I mean, there's no step in between. They're stepping up onto the stage, you're right there, and that comes up quite a bit, that there's action that happens that gets close to the audience, and everybody has to be safe, and we have to know that there's no chance that something could go wrong.
Yeah, there's so much discussion about stuff like that. Barbara Damashek and James Carpenter are actually in our last show, The Children. You wouldn't believe how much time we spent discussing this tricycle. His characters ride a little tricycle around a table, and that's it. But the set was on a ramp, and the ramp had an 18-inch drop off on the edge, and it's very close to the audience. James Carpenter is a tall man, and a children's tricycle is actually pretty hard to ride. So we had to test it and discuss how we might do it, and make sure it was all safe and whatnot. And so it's a huge element of the job, is all those safety aspects.
Cameron, how far in advance do those discussions start happening for a play?
That sort of depends. So I typically read the scripts as soon as we announce. Sometimes it's pretty apparent very far in advance. Even you, the artistic director, Tom, would ask me in choosing a play if there was a particularly difficult segment or something that might even prevent us from doing it successfully. So sometimes that's what, nearly a year in advance, where I'll start thinking about solutions and whatnot. For production meetings, which are the formal meetings we have for each show, we start doing those 2 to 3 months in advance. And that's where we really start getting into specifics about how we might tackle challenges like that.
Yeah. Any other favorite shows you want to talk about?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Eureka Day was another of my favorite sets. And I have a couple of photos I want to show about that. Eureka Day was designed by Richard Olmsted and directed by one Josh Costello, our world premiere at the Aurora Theater. Yeah. And that's another one of those sets, like I said, I really love the realism, and that was a very realistic set. One of the things that was really neat about this set was the mural on the back wall. And that was painted by Anya Kazmierski, who was a painter for us for several years and did maybe a dozen shows for us. And it was painted directly from a photo Richard took, I think, from the Rose Garden in Berkeley. And it was painted in sort of an abstract-y, pointillistic style. That's a perennial challenge. Whenever we have windows or something, the back wall is typically like 2 feet away. We can't really get a lot of scenery. So we often have to have a discussion about what are we seeing back there? How realistic is it? Should we just go opaque and just make it colored or something? And in this case, we went with a slightly abstract painting, and it was just incredible. It really brought that set home. That was a Berkeley story, and it really made it, local to us.
Yeah, we really wanted it to feel like we were in the Berkeley Hills, and so the Richard Olmsted was really inspired by Julia Morgan buildings. We looked at a lot of pictures of the interior of the North Branch Berkeley Public Library, and there's actually an old school up there, the Hillside School, that near the Rose Garden, that used to be part of the Berkeley Public School District, that has been taken over at various times by different private schools, and so I sort of imagine that Eureka Day moved into that, their Eureka Day school. Once they moved out of people's living rooms, they sort of moved into that space, and so the view would be similar to the view from the Rose Garden. And Richard ran up there and took that photo, and Anya painted it, and then Jeff Rowlings, our lighting designer, just did an amazing job of lighting it to look like different times of day.
That was really incredible.
Realize you could do that. It was just
one painting painted in daylight style and just with LED lighting. Thank goodness for modern lighting, and we can go like there.
So that's the actual colors in that image,
and that's pretty natural for it. And he did this over time too, because you can fade them. So some of these scenes we would start in evening, they'd have this meeting, and it would fade into the night scene. And just with lighting, the same painting, you can just make it sort of be whatever time you want it to be. That was one of the most successful times I've actually seen that work. And it was really incredible.
You would add clouds, and then you add the Golden Gate Bridge lights too.
Yeah. So Jeff Rollins was the lighting designer for that, and he's a huge lighting nerd. And casually, I think during tech, he turned to Charles Clares, the master electrician, and me, and said, "Man, I really wish we could get on the bridge in the painting the little blinking red lights." And I said to Charles, like, hey, I just bought these laser diodes for a laser cutter I have to help align and target that. I could grab them, and I think we can focus them on that and hook them up to a little PWM power controller. And yeah, we were able to, during a break, I think, go and add little blinking bridge lights. And it's just those fun little elements that are a really awesome part of my job. And
Cameron, I have worked with a lot of technical directors in the past, and often, the intersection between technical director and director of the show, it's not a huge collaboration, because the directors usually collaborate, more with the designers, and then the designers collaborate with the technical director. But as is appropriate, a lot of times the focus of the technical director is on the drawings, right? Is on the installation. And there's nothing wrong with that. But something I totally appreciate about your style is that you also have a real dramaturgical approach to these plays. You're such a great problem solver, and you always do so from the standpoint of the story. So it's not just materials or costs or all the things that are your job to be worried about, but you do privilege the story. So I would just love to hear from you what your process is in terms of collaborating with designers towards putting a show together.
Yeah. I think that's one of the best parts about working at the Aurora Theater. Like you say, different theaters work differently, their structure is different. And I get that other places, the technical director doesn't have license to insert themselves artistically into the process. They are more of an engineer. And to be honest, I really consider myself more of an engineer. I never really thought of myself as an artist. And that's not really how I got into the industry. I consider myself, an engineer, a builder, a problem solver. But theater needs a problem solver, an engineer to actually get these things on stage safely and at cost. But the Aurora Theater really does encourage full collaboration with all of its designers. They're pretty small teams. And it's really awesome to see, to go to production meeting and everyone, and this is a culture that predates me. That's when I got there, it was like this. Everyone's fully encouraged to collaborate. So we have these production meetings, and the costume designer can suggest to the lighting designer about colors we might use, and the sound designer might have a suggestion to the set designer about where we might place these things, and not even touching directly on their own departments or an intersection. We're pretty open to having opinions about sort of everything, being respectful, but that collaboration is really great. And I think it's why a lot of designers really love to work with us. And so as a technical director, at least at the Aurora, I feel like I have a lot more license to get involved. Like I said, I don't feel like I'm an artist, but I get to be an artist vicariously and work with these designers and directors and bring my skills to help, enact their vision.
Yeah, but Cameron, also your skills enable our visions to expand.
Yeah.
And that's what's really amazing. You've come up with ideas that have made things possible that I would not have thought of. That when I'm directing a show, you've said, oh well, I could actually make this, right? And then I go, oh, that means I feel like you're such a big part of that process, and it's really wonderful.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like. Like I say, I think about a lot as problem solving or puzzle solving, and so if I can make it happen and it makes a better show, it tells the story better, it more completely aligns with the director's vision, that's what I'm there for.
Cameron, how did you get started down this path? How did you first get interested in theater, and how did you end up going into the technical direction side of things? I also want to give a shout out to your brother as well, who is also a technical director and is you often bring in to collaborate with you on, and he's often in the building tinkering and fixing things and helping you out with building sets. So is this a family affair? How did you get sucked into this?
It really started in high school. Some friends and I were hanging out in our cafeteria / auditorium, Go Hayward High Farmers. And there was 2 kids on stage, and we had never been on stage before, and they were arguing loudly about very poorly constructing a box. And we walked up there and said, well, we could help you build this box a little bit better. Then it turns out one of our friends who had just transferred in from a different school, he had done theater, and he started to get us into it. And then we found out you could take theater classes and cut like most of your classes and go build on stage. So that was great. From there, as you mentioned, we started working with this theater company in Alameda called the Alameda Civic Light Opera. And they would do 3 pretty big musicals for a community theater program. They're actually quite large. It's out of the Kaufman Auditoriums, which is this gorgeous 1,500 seat theater built in the 30s. And the Alameda Civic Light Opera actually had a robust intern program and hired these high school kids and actually paid them a bit. And they had theater professionals that were being paid, but mostly volunteering to come in. And, as kids, we'd walk through all of the, we all had to work in the shop and crew the shows and do the lighting and costumes, sound, everything. It was a really great training program. And to be honest, a lot of technical people in the Bay Area that I know came directly out of that. I know at least 4 technical directors from that program. In fact, an incredible percentage of the people that worked with me in that program have stayed in the theater industry, that went in to become stage managers, or people that work for ILM or Disney or tour or work in New York, or like I said, 4 technical directors. Yeah, and from there I went to college. I went to Cal State Hayward, and I wasn't really planning on doing theater. I did take some theater classes. I volunteered a lot for the theater there, but I continued to do theater the entire time I was there because it's actually a great job while you're in college, because it's nights and weekends. I graduated with a degree in computer science and just kept working in theater after that. You just get sort of job after job. I worked with 2 or 3 dozen theaters in the greater Bay Area, or at least Northern California area. And yeah, just sort of kept doing it.
Wow. Well, Tom Ross says you are an artist, Cam. And Chris Killian says, so happy to see Cameron carrying on the legacy and keeping Aurora a great place to do the art. And Chris is very active in the chat, so you probably want to check it out after the episode, because he said a lot of complimentary things.
Well, thank you, Chris. He's an amazing guy who started this culture at the Aurora Theater. He's the technical director for many years there, and to this day, so call him occasionally if I have questions about the building and whatnot. He was pretty incredible.
What are some common misconceptions about the work of a technical director? I could out myself and say a few, but rather not if I don't have to.
Let's see, common misconceptions about technical director.
Or about the process of putting on a play too.
About well, a common misconception: how long does it take? We at the Aurora have a very compressed timeline, to the point where primary construction sometimes is like 3 weeks. So to see some of this stuff come up in 3 weeks, at the Aurora, because we don't have a second shop or anything, and we have to build entirely on stage, when we're between shows, there's not a lot I can accomplish in building for the next show. So sometimes people think that we rehearse this stuff for 6 months or something. I've heard, like, man, how long have you guys been at this? What are you talking about? We just met 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that's one thing that comes up. It's a very quick process.
I find it so interesting that folks in your position, who are so good at building things, you could be building, you could be building, permanent structures, right? You could be building houses, you could be building buildings, right? You could be an architect, you have these skills that could be used for something much more permanent, and yet you clearly find some kind of joy in building a lot of different things, and sort of being able to work in a lot of different styles. And there's something really beautiful about that impermanence, that you're, and it allows you to, I don't know, to get to solve lots of different problems, I guess is how you put it.
Yeah, that's really it. What I do, every show is unique. Every single production is different, and every time I do something differently, I learn some new skill, some new way of doing something. I research what other people have done. Theater in general is a very collaborative process. So I can call, we'll do a show and maybe it'll have a difficult technical element. And so we'll go call a production that's done it previously and say, well, how did you solve this? We were thinking about doing it this way. Do you have any tips? But I love learning. And so it's because of that constant problem solving, because there's always something different, it allows you to constantly be challenging yourself and constantly like, I do go, do jobs at houses and build stuff, because that's how I pick up the skills and be able to use them on stage. And, I watch videos on YouTube all the time of, electrical installers and electrical engineers tearing, a toaster apart for 45 minutes and stuff like that. I'm just always fascinated to learn sort of anything new. So,
and Cameron, you are also Aurora's sort of de facto IT specialist. When we had to switch to remote, you made the rounds, making sure everybody's computers and work setups were proper and installed the way they needed them. And some of us have multiple monitor setups. You are the person behind the tech at auroratheater.org. You've made yourself available to our patrons who needed to navigate how to access our digital content. I mean, you set up our remote phone system. I mean, it goes well beyond just building set. I mean, what you can do really is tremendous. And so I will out myself in saying that, you know, I think I had some preconceived notions of tech directors, that they were frustrated designers, and I have not found you to be a frustrated designer, and grumpy old guys, and I have not found you to be grumpy. And I think you're younger than me.
Well, one of like, I've never even really designed. I haven't considered designing, and it's not that it doesn't interest me. In some ways, I sort of lack that creative spark. I like to latch on when we have a design snowballing, and I can get it and get into it. And I've read the script and I've talked to the director, and sometimes it can help move concepts along. But that's what I mean when I say I'm not necessarily an artist. It's hard for me to think about in the very abstract, those sort of initial elements of working with a director about which direction we might go. It's a lot easier for me to latch on later and sort of move the process along. But all those elements I've been working at, since that's just more of the same. I have to do sort of whatever comes up. It is the technical director's role. I mean, those are sort of extracurricular, but it's the same, picking up things really quickly and getting done what needs to be done.
Well, Cameron, you are such a big part of Aurora Theater Company, and your work is so valued by everybody on the staff, but also by our community of artists. And we're so lucky to have you.
Well, it's been a really fun experience. I think I've done 7 seasons, that's 39 full productions.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh my
yeah. God. Yeah, I remember Exit Strategy was such a fun one too, with the not only the 3 panels that all revolved, with one being pushed, you had bicycle chains rigged up to make them all turn at the same time, but then also we had to have the functional sync on stage, and it was attached to one of the spinning panels, and so you had
with electricity.
With electricity, and so you were talking about this before, the running the flexible pipe up through the axle on which the walls spun, and then around, through that walk we went on in the tour video, backstage and into the shower room and attached to the shower head. So you had this incredibly long flexible pipe running around that went into the set. It was just amazing.
Yeah, it was a fun one. Getting the timing was a little tricky, but I've never worked with bicycle chain to gear things together, so why not try that? Let's weld gears on there and see what happens.
Incredible. And the moving pieces, and actually with the motor and everything. I mean, just such amazing stuff. Cameron, we're gonna I think wrap up this episode, but thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great way to close out before we go on a holiday break.
So we have a couple more announcements before we end the episode. First of all, I want to remind everybody about our membership program. Nosotros La Gente from American Stage is available now on our membership portal. So please, members, go ahead and check out that production. It's a really lovely production where they actually had 2 actors who are a couple in real life, and so they were potted together anyway, and so they could perform the scenes on video, but in the same room together, actually acting like they're in a play on a set. It's really lovely, and it's a lovely story. So please check that out at auroratheater.org. And while you're there, please go on. I know we got at least 1 donation during this episode, and we are looking for more. We want to pass our $100,000 goal so that we can stay open and be here when the pandemic is done, and we can make live theater for you once again. So thank you so much for your support.
Great. Josh, do you have an advocacy shout out for this week?
I sure do. Project Avery offers long-term support, resources, guidance, and training for children with incarcerated parents. Project Avery is a year-round program tailored to meet the unique emotional needs of children with a parent in prison. We intervene early in the lives of children at the ages of 8 to 11, and we make long-term 10-year commitment to each child and family. They are at www.projectavery.org, and we encourage you to check them out.
Great. And of course, you can be in touch with us anytime at connects@auroratheater.org. We'd love to hear from you. We're so grateful that that our friends commented along in the chat today. So thank you, Chris and Tom and Mia and Michael and all of our friends who watched today. And remember that you can watch past episodes, season 1 and season 2, from YouTube channel directly and as a member benefit. They all exist on your member website and are also available wherever you get your audio podcasts.
After we sign off, we're going to play a couple of how-to videos that Cameron has made, explaining to folks how they can access their membership benefits from our membership portal. So if you are having trouble with the technology, please stick around and check those out.
Great. Thank you all so much. We'll see you again Thursday, February 4th, 2021 at 5 p.m. for our next episode of Connects. Until then, thank you for staying connected. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
To access digital content on the Aurora Theater Company member site, open a browser and go to members.auroratheater.org. Click Login in the upper right-hand corner. Put in your email address and your password, and click Login. You'll be taken to this page. Click on Products to see a list of all of our current content. Each of these have a button next to it, which will take you directly to the content to be played. Also, from the main site, you can use these links at the top to see more about our specific offerings. Each of these pages should have a button which will take you directly to the content. If you've forgotten your Aurora Theater Company member site login information, open a browser and go to members.auroratheater.org and click Login in the upper right corner. From here, try inputting your email address to see if a pop-up suggests anything. If it does not, you may need to search your email for one we've sent titled "Thanks for subscribing to Season Membership." That will confirm which email address you used. If you cannot find that either, you may need to contact the box office at boxoffice@auroratheater.org via email for further assistance. From here, you can enter in anything for the password for now and click Login. On this next page, below the login button, click Forgot Your Password. Here, put in the email address you found before and click Next. In your email, you should receive a Reset Your Password email. Open that and click the Reset Your Password link. On this new page, put in your new password and click Reset My Password. Now, try logging in with that email and your new password. That should successfully log you into the site, and you can join us for any of our current products.